Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about, will my ex ever see me the same after begging and pleading? This is a very real concern that many of you have after a breakup, and rightfully so, because our behaviors always have an impact on the people that we date. And the more that we do unattractive things, the more they're going to be turned off by it. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. Some people don't want to hear that. They kind of want to live in denial about that. But that's the truth. And if you don't take a step back and consider that, well, you're just not going to hold yourself accountable for how you act and behave and just think you can do whatever and not have an impact on the other person.
Well, also during a breakup, a lot of you might feel ashamed for how you reacted or how you might have dealt with that feeling of rejection. And you just think, is my ex going to permanently view me like that? Is that just the last view they have of me? And then we've broken up and then we never speak again. So ending on that note can be really devastating, and it can be hard to rebuild that confidence and even see yourself in a different light sometimes.
It really can. So if you're in a situation where someone ended the relationship and you were trying to convince them not to, you were begging and pleading, maybe you were doing manipulative things like handwritten letter, grand gesture, clean slate message, you're probably feeling that, thinking about, well, they saw me as this person they were really attracted to, that they felt like they were going to spend their life with in many cases. And now they are put off and they're annoyed, they're angry at me. The reality is that our emotions, our actions, the environment, the mood, the energy level that we have, all of these things are going to impact how somebody sees us.
Also, attachment styles.
Oh, yeah.
And so people who are maybe more avoidantly attached or even disorganized, they can have a difficult time trying to integrate some of those difficult parts of a person, right? Some of our flaws. And attachment styles too. So somebody who's more avoidantly attached or even disorganized, they might have a more difficult time trying to integrate some of just these real life flaws that people have in real life and in real relationships into how they see you as a person. And an example of this is having a really strongly connected relationship with somebody who's more avoidant, and then 6 months down the line, once the relationship becomes real, once you're kind of seeing more of that everyday version of them and they're seeing that everyday version of you, then things kind of crumble and collapse. They can't really have a picture of what a real relationship looks like with all the flaws and all the imperfections to work through those things.
Yeah, something that's like really integrated,
Exactly.
a whole person.
And somebody who's more anxious, they might be more inclined to ignore some of those concerns to try to retain that perfect image of you. So let's say there's a partner who's really non-committal, right? And you're anxious in this relationship. You might ignore the fact that they're not meeting your needs, or maybe their goals are different, because you want to retain this image of them so that you stay together and you avoid that abandonment. So they might continue the relationship for a while until the point where it can't be ignored any longer. And then, they tell you, well, you haven't been committing. Well, I'm ready to commit now. Well, you haven't been this whole time, and the veil has been lifted, right? So how somebody sees you can be shaped by a lot of different things.
It's ever changing.
And part of knowing someone is having your view of them deepen. So with time, you tend to see these different parts of a person. And sometimes a relationship starts romantic, it turns into a difficult power struggle, but then it turns into a friendship, then it turns into a companionship. So there's many different roles that a longer term relationship will take over time.
Yeah, I mean, if you even think about the early courtship of dating and how someone is 2 years in, they are a very different person. So things shift, okay? And that's why I always tell you guys, you want to court your partner. You don't want to take someone for granted, because when you take them for granted, you get caught in routines, and you just are not like the best version of yourself, and you're not really showing up in the way that you need to. It's like when somebody first gets a pet, they're really, really good about letting it out, doing this, that, and that. And then, they've had it for a long time and they're not quite as, maybe a pet's not a good example. Maybe like a car.
Okay.
Okay. You know how someone gets a car and they're first excited about the car, they're cleaning it, they're washing it, they're doing the armor oil, and then a year later it's dirty, it's covered in hair. They're not taking as good a care of it. And so that's kind of what people do with relationships, right? So you got to take care of things that will help make sure the attraction stays high, or at least it gives it a better chance of staying high longer.
Right. So while you may be worried about how your ex will view you, if they will continue to view you in that one light of how things were at the end of your relationship or at the breakup, what we're trying to say here is that things will change, and inevitably their perception of you will change. Even if you think about your relationship with the OG attachment figure, your caregivers, right? It's very different from when you're a child and you're fully dependent on them, to when you're a teen and maybe there's that bit of the power struggle, to when you're an adult and maybe you kind of build a friendship, right? And these are in the ideal sense, in the ideal terms, right? But inevitably relationships change, and that's with every relationship that you'll have in your life. And so while you can't dictate how things are going to change, right? We can't just suddenly wish our ex to view us in a really strong and confident light. We have some control on how we view ourselves and also how we choose to portray ourselves, right?
That's huge.
This is really, really huge.
Your behavior is going to have the biggest impact on the situation. And that's why we're always trying to tell you, leave your ex alone, focus on personal growth. A lot of the other stuff that's out there is manipulative, weak, controlling behavior. And that's what we're trying to get across to you. I know you're scared. I know you want to reach out. I know you want to send that third apology text message, even though you've already apologized twice and they're slightly getting irritated by those apologies. You feel like the third one is going to change it. Don't do it. Okay? It doesn't help. If it helped, we tell you to do it. But we see these kind of things all the time. And if you're trying to get your ex to see you in an attractive way again, you have to act in an attractive way, which means a confident way. I remember that feeling that I had after my breakups, where there's such a huge power imbalance, and you kind of feel like this overwhelming feeling of like weakness, or like you're no longer an equal to that other person. It feels like they hold all the cards and you're just trying to do whatever you can to get them to see that you're worth another chance. And you're trying to talk to them about it. I remember thinking, I'm just going to talk about it. It didn't work. Yeah. It doesn't work. Just trying to talk. Let's just talk about it. I'm telling you guys, if I thought it would help you, I would tell you to do it. Leave them alone. Stop trying to chase them. All of those things that other people suggest in regards to reaching out, a handwritten letter, clean slate message, good reminder text. Some of them are downright scary. They'll be getting restraining orders if you listen to those. You know what I'm talking about. There's a couple of them that they're really bad. But they're literally getting... I've had people do coachings with them, and they're like, they literally called the police on me. Because they're not allowing for space and they're scaring people. We can't scare people. If you get to the point where you're really scaring an ex, it's going to make it very, 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 very difficult to turn it around. Right?
And for them to view you in a different light after, something major like that happens.
Yes.
So we can't control their interpretation of things, right? But we can control how we present ourselves. And one thing that's important to remember is that love in itself, this is very philosophical, stick with me, but love is very regenerative, right? So we want to be in a relationship where it can be somewhat flexible, to where you can understand a person, understand both their good sides, their bad sides, their shadow sides, right? Even the flaws, and have levels of acceptance in there within reason, right? Within reason, but be able to experience some of that. And so while I know there might be a lot of feelings of shame and guilt, embarrassment towards the end of the breakup, to say that that is their permanent view of you forever is unrealistic.
Absolutely. It is so true. But space is absolutely critical to allowing that regeneration to happen.
Right.
You've got to show the strength to give them space. There are just certain behaviors that turn people off, and chasing someone or pressuring them is one of those big things that just really destroys attraction. So you need to show them the strength to allow the space, and that over time, as they process things, thinking about missing you, thinking about all your good qualities on their own terms, at their own speed, allows them to see things differently. Because a lot of times they'll be like, I got really upset at him for doing this thing, and now, a couple months go by and they're thinking, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know why I got so upset about that.
Yeah.
I don't know, why did I get so angry at them for that thing? And they start to think about those things, but you can't force it. And reaching out to tell them that you've changed. I'm different now. It's been 3 whole weeks.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work like that.
You have to be able to consistently show them your emotional security, show them your emotional safety by giving them that space, and also continuing the things that make you you. And continuing those things that keep your mental health in check.
Absolutely. Focus on personal growth. It will pay off one way or another. Even if they don't come back, you're going to feel so much better about yourself. You're going to be far more prepared to attract somebody new and stop making a lot of the little mistakes that we often make in relationships. I talked to a guy recently who does really well with women. Okay? He told me his number. I'm not going to tell you, but it was really high. Okay? And he told me his closing rate was really high.
All right.
But here's the thing, okay? He does really well with people that he's not attached to. But the minute he's attached to somebody, that is where all those people that, he was successful with and they turned him off, now he's doing that to the one person that he really likes. And that is what's going to happen to many of you, okay? You're going to find that if you don't do the work, you're going to be more likely to turn off the people that you really, really like, because that's the one that it's the hardest to stay centered with, the ones that you're attached to. Right? When you're, like, if you are, going out with people here or there and having a good time, but you don't really see it going anywhere, we're so relaxed, we're so easygoing, we're not putting pressure on it.
Right.
But when there's that person that you really like, that's when all of those attachment issues come out.
Right. And when we are so stuck on trying to control someone's view of us instead of just being authentically who we are, then things can go really haywire. Right? A lot of times when somebody's trying to portray themselves in a certain way really, really hard, most people can see right through that. So in this video, we're trying to encourage people to genuinely work through their emotional issues, work through their emotional state to get to that place where you're grounded so you can be more authentic, so that somebody's view of you can reflect who you truly are rather than what you're trying to force, or rather than just your anxiety showing through and not really being representative of you and who you are.
Yeah, I know it's tough. And this is why I'm trying to warn you, because I don't want to see you make those mistakes. I see a lot of people that can be themselves when they're not really attached to the outcome or the person. But when they get to those people that they really like, all of those issues come up. So that's why I'm telling you, please work on your attachment stuff. So when your ex comes back, you can be a lot more confident. But if they don't, and you wind up getting attached to somebody else and liking somebody else, you're a lot more healed in the areas that you may have struggled before.
Exactly.
Okay? All right. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email and I do Zoom.
Woo!
We have switched over to Zoom calls.
Many of you are like, finally.
Listen, we didn't give up on Skype. They gave up on us, okay? So we're not quitters. Skype did it. But Zoom has been a really easy transition so far. In fact, it's been a lot easier because now you guys don't even have to add us as a contact anymore.
Right.
You just have to click on the link that you get sent when you choose your time slot with us.
Yeah.
So it's nice and easy.
It's a nice, smooth transition.
So I'm doing Zoom calls now.
We're finally in 2025.
And so is Coach Victoria.
Yes, this is true.
Join us in 2025 for Zoom. Zoom calls. All right. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.